Welcome to Conversation as we continue on the book of 1 John. We're actually getting to the very last text in this wonderful letter that John wrote the church. I want to invite you to turn to the 5th chapter, and I want to read just a few verses out of 1 John chapter 5. Let me start at verse 6. This is the one who came by water and blood, Jesus Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. And the Spirit is the one who testifies, because the Spirit is the truth. The three are testifying, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and the three are united in agreement. If we receive human testimony, God's testimony is greater, because this is what God testified. He has testified about his Son. Skip down to verse 13. I write these things to you and believe in the name of God's Son, so that you can know that you have eternal life. This is the confidence that we have in our relationship with God. If we ask for anything in agreement with his will, he listens to us. Lately, there have been a number of television shows and movies about a cappella groups. I love so much of the music that comes from those shows that feature these a cappella groups, or the movies about these groups that get put together and do these a cappella contests. There's something in us that loves to hear that, because there's something really cool about the harmonies that come together when they come together well. It's that kind of vision of a harmony of life that John has, not just here, but in his gospel. From the very beginning of his gospel, John is concerned that we find the harmony with who Jesus is, as he comes to bring newness to us, whether that is he is the new wine, the new bread, the new temple, the new life, that we find our life connected with Christ and with God in the harmony of life. Here at the end of the 5th chapter of this epistle, he begins to articulate that as a sort of three-part harmony flowing together. If you look again at verse 7 and 8, the three are testifying, the Spirit, the water, and the blood. Earlier, he talked about Jesus as coming both in water and blood. I think the significance for John in that is certainly that the blood becomes the reality of the cross, the reality of the self-giving love of the kingdom. If we don't understand that part of it, if we don't understand that the kingdom is ultimately rooted in love, that it's ultimately rooted in self-sacrifice, we won't get it. That is the melody, if you will, of this whole kingdom conversation. If you don't understand that part of it, if you don't see that, if you don't get that, you won't understand the eternal life that comes when we work towards reconciliation, forgiveness, all that is rooted in that symbol of the blood. But we also have water. More than likely, when John is talking about that, for John, the baptism of Jesus is so significant, because the baptism, as rooted in Israel's history, always comes to represent new creation. That we enter into the waters of the Red Sea, or we enter into the waters of baptism in the old creation, but we come to this whole new creation. And so the water and the blood are, the center of what Jesus was about. He comes to bring the new creation, and the new creation that's found in self-giving love. But as we discover the self-giving love and enter into that, we find that we're part of the new creation. They just come together. They are the two-part harmonies that fit together. But on top of that, then this third part weaves in, the Spirit. And for John, it seems like he sees that as the gift that comes at the end of this blood and water revelation of who Jesus is. The Spirit becomes that empowering for a people, a community that comes to live in that, empowered by that, filled by that, so that he sees us being connected to that. John always wants to think about us being connected to those three things, to blood, to water, to Spirit. And as he says, when we are united with that in agreement, we discover within us that we have connected to the life we can only describe as eternal, as beautiful, as the way things are supposed to be. So that we join in, our voices, our hearts, our bodies, our soul, our spirit, all of who we are, we join into the harmony of spirit, water, and blood. And then there's a powerful promise at the end of that if we capture this eternal life, if we start singing this amazing harmony, that the confidence that we have in our relationship with God is this: if we ask anything in agreement with his will, if we ask anything in agreement with the harmony of this self-giving love, new creation, community of Christ kind of way, he will do it for us. John goes on to give a few examples. If we see our brother or sister who in a sense, to use my metaphor, is starting to sing the wrong part, whose life is starting to sound out of tune, if we will pray, if we will intercede, the Lord will work in ways to bring that person back into the harmony of life, the harmony of goodness, the harmony of health, the harmony of new creation. It's amazing what John envisions for us. John's kind of an interesting writer. We don't get a lot of moral commands in any of the writings of John. There's nothing like, for example, the Sermon on the Mount in John, where Jesus says, "You've heard it said this, but now here's what I tell you to do." In fact, there's very little that John tells us that we need to do. What John invites us to is quite profound: to discover the harmony of Christ, to discover his tune that is found in love, that is found in new creation, that's found in a community shaped by all of those things. And if we find that, he's just absolutely convinced that we will be filled with the Spirit, and we won't have to fret about or worry about what we should do or what we shouldn't do, that we'll find this harmony of life at work within us that leads us to do the things that glorify God, that lead us into the things that don't bring death but bring eternal life. It's an amazing vision for who we can be. I would love for you to talk in your group about what you think this harmony looks like. When have you maybe seen this harmony at work in a people? Why? And I think this is an important question. Why do you think John is less concerned with giving us sort of the rules of the kingdom, but inviting us into the harmony, the connection of the kingdom? What would that look like? And what would that look like in a community that learns to sing, if you will, the song of blood, of water, of spirit? It might be interesting for you as a group to think about those three things. What do you think those three things mean, and what do they signify, and how do we learn those parts so we can be in tune with Christ, in tune with the Spirit? And you can't read this text without then saying, what are the things we should be praying for as we are in harmony with him? And I would invite you to think about, what are the things that we can pray that demonstrate that we are connected into the harmony of Christ? And of course, I want to invite you to pray together those things that are in step with the Spirit, and see what he will do. I know you'll have a great conversation together. Lord bless you.